I am a 26-year-old gay man. I came out in October of 2023. The past couple of years, I've been getting to know myself again.
As I explained last time, we're just walking through a series of exercises that I've called the Good Life Positioning System. I've created these year-long projects before for myself during transition times. Coming out was one of those transition.
Dating is another whole life in itself, I
Mhm.
think, especially for gay men. So there's dating and then there's sex inside of dating, and the sex can also be I think like another layer of self-acceptance,
Mhm.
and internalized homophobia or a lack of self-acceptance really shows up in sex. If we're allowing ourselves to listen to the world or God or the universe or whatever you believe, I think there's a lot of subtle clues that can help lead us to a path that might be right for us. And I can think of like several examples when
Seamus, great to have you join me today. Thanks for doing that. And we're just going to walk through, as we've been talking, this series of exercises and assessments to develop a project around your strengths, your interests, values, something hopefully that's relevant to what you're going through now in your life. And so, if you don't mind, maybe just a little bit of background to who you are and kind of where you are in your life right now.
yeah, definitely. Thanks for having me on, Dave. This is exciting. I am a 26-year-old gay man in Cincinnati. I came out in October of 2023. And that was a big step for me in my life of living more authentically. And kind of the past couple of years, I've been getting to know myself again. I think most of my life, I was like a relatively happy kid and like really dove into sports and had friends growing up in high school and college. I played college lacrosse and then kind of just fell a little bit into like some depression due to like not expressing myself fully. And with like the help of therapy and moving to Cincinnati a couple years ago, I've really spent the last 2 years really expressing myself, and coming out was a big part of that. And I'm still on this journey of self-acceptance and in the process trying to kind of share what I'm learning with other people and hoping that it's helpful through my Instagram. And that's kind of where I'm at now. I'm currently a fitness coach at a local Cincinnati gym, and I'm loving being a part of people's lives and helping them live a healthier life.
Yeah, thanks again for doing this. And as I explained last time, we're just kind of walking through a series of exercises that I've called the Good Life Positioning System, something I've developed over my career of the last 30, 40 years now, probably in higher education and as a therapist and a coach. And really from my own life experience, things I've tried out and experimented for myself with my own, for my own mental health and well-being and finding direction. And we've talked and I've created these year-long projects before for myself during transition times. And coming out was one of those transition. And I had a couple projects to help me come out because it didn't seem to take the first two times. So, but they really helped me just address a few things that I wanted to work on. And out of that process and working with clients, I put together this series of stages that helped me, but that I think have been also helpful to clients. The first part of the process is to really maybe think differently about things. Maybe you think this way anyways, but last time we talked about the idea of breadcrumbs and or clues or like coordinating points in life, things that we come across that help direct us. And that could be just maybe signs, things in everyday life. If we're aware and paying attention, they could help direct us in a certain direction. And so I just kind of want to have a discussion around that idea, that approach to life, and your thoughts, initial thoughts about what that means to you and what that's meant to you in your life.
I think clues and breadcrumbs is such a interesting topic because I think if we're allowing ourselves to listen to the world or God or the universe or whatever you believe, I think there's a lot of subtle clues that can help lead us to a path that might be right for us. And I can think of like several examples when I think one of the biggest like breadcrumbs in my life was this like subtle like feeling to leave home back in 2022.
Mm.
And there's just this like calling that I needed to like get out from my hometown. And I think within a couple of weeks of like that, like a friend reached out, like a family friend reached out and had a job offer for me to move to Nashville. And I think that was kind of like the universe just like the idea of leaving. I mean, I guess it was my own, but I feel like sometimes there's just these ideas that like come into us and they're like they're right in front of us and we
Mm.
just need to listen to those ideas. And long story short, I went to Cincinnati instead of Nashville, with a little help from my dad. And like that was kind of, I believe, the start of my like journey, for like becoming my full self. And with working with you, Dave, I think I've gotten more in touch of trying to listen to what the universe is telling me or showing me through my everyday experience. And I was thinking of this past week and trying to think of like repeating patterns or coincidences that can kind of like guide me on my continue to guide me on my journey. And I realized I had four individual one-on-one conversations with friends that were like an hour long
Mm.
plus, and they were very like intimate, deep, like vulnerable conversations. And those types of conversations are what kind of makes me feel like I'm have meaning and giving and also receiving in those conversations. And Dave and I have talked a lot about like what my career will be and maybe like being a therapist. So that kind of popped into my mind as like, oh, this is like four instances in 1 week is like a pattern to maybe pay attention to and follow that kind of path.
Okay. And so when you say those four instances, was that before you came to Cincinnati, or is that something that happened more recently?
Oh, so that was just in this past week.
Oh, okay.
So yeah,
Yes.
so they were all friends and like we were all talking about kind of like what's going on in our lives and like some of the challenges we're facing and how we want to move forward and all of that good stuff.
Okay. You'll ask more about those conversations. But going back to when you were trying to decide, what to do next at 22, I think you said, and you had this feeling and this nudge. Can you say more about what that was like, what was going on then, and how did you, listen to that small
Hmm.
calling or whatever?
Yeah, so back at I think I probably was 22 in 2022, which is interesting, but I was struggling with my sexual identity. I was still in the closet and I had just started going to therapy and we were talking about um kind of just this like role and persona that I was starting to like just continuing to play at my house. Like I was living at home with my parents and I grew up in that a small town environment. And I think we get familiar with the roles that we played in certain areas. And so I think my therapist and I at the time were talking about kind of just like a change of pace, a new setting. And
Hmm.
she kind of recommended like moving out from my parents and trying something new. And I think that in that instance, that was maybe a little breadcrumb, and I completely agreed with it. I was like,
Hmm.
yeah, let's get out of here. And then my dad was actually kind of the person that I really leaned on to help make a decision. I had two job offers, one in Nashville and one in Cincinnati. Um, and he was really like supportive of either direction, but he was really like just listen to your kind of your gut and your intuition.
Hmm.
Um, and I picked Cincinnati, and it's been the best decision of my life so far.
Hmm.
Um, and that's kind of led me to working with you, Dave. It's led me to a beautiful group of friends that I'm really grateful for. And yeah, the list goes on of what it's led me to. It's led me to the church that I work at and where I live at right now. And yeah, I'm excited about the direction of life and where it's going. And I'm continuing to try to listen to the universe and like my intuition. I'll stop there, but I can keep going if you'd like.
Yeah, well, I'm just curious, like, what was it at that point when you're deciding between Cincinnati and Nashville, and what helped you decide Cincinnati?
It's actually a pretty funny story. I flipped a coin.
Well, that works. It really just came down to that.
I mean, so I in my heart I wanted to go to Cincinnati, but I couldn't really make the
Mm.
decision. Um, and then I flipped a coin and I was like, if heads is Cincinnati, then I'm gonna go with it. And it was heads, and I was so relieved and so happy
Mm.
with
Mm.
that. And that's kind of how it happened.
Yeah. So when you think of when I think of the universe speaking to me, and I use that language a lot. I mean, we both come from religious Christian backgrounds in our families, and so I've gone through, and I talk about this a lot, gone through this phase of being kind of a nominal Christian growing up, believed in God, and then became a born again conservative evangelical Christian in college for 20 years, went to seminary, and uh, you know, during that time, I was trying to change my identity, and so that my faith influenced my my actions in terms of my being gay or not, or tried to. And then in my early 40s, that's when I think I started to move away from my Christian faith and became an atheist for a while, and then agnostic, and now I'm just kind of curious and open to what's next. But through all that, I think I throughout my life, before I was a conservative Christian or evangelical Christian, I still believed in this that there's this I think something out there. I didn't know. I think I thought it was God, but I didn't have the Christian framework at the time. And even as an atheist and agnostic, I thought that there's something greater out there. I would say it was God, but that kind of influences me. So the universe is my language sort of now, to still feel like that I'm being led by something, that the world. Maybe it's my. I think you referred to this as well. Maybe it's my own intuition that I'm kind of relying on, more than
Mhm.
I used to. I don't know. What are your you've had a similar journey, and I don't know where you are with your
Mhm.
faith, but how do you respond to that?
Yeah, I think I found a lot of peace in believing in God or a higher power. Like you, Dave, I grew up religious, and I think there's still a lot of religious trauma that I haven't really uncovered or like undressed or addressed. And like growing up thinking marriage is between a man and a woman, and th- like my church didn't marry gay people. It wasn't like overtly um what's the word?
Homophobic?
Homophobic, but it was pretty, yeah. It was like pre I don't know, it was just not accepting at all or
Hmm.
affirming. I didn't see any gay people growing up. It was not even a discussion we really had. And I think like there was discussions, I guess, that like marriage between a man and a man just what didn't it wasn't right, I guess. Not that it was evil, but it just wasn't right. So I definitely took a step back, like religiously in high school and college. Like I just was trying to understand the world, and that religion didn't make sense to me. Um, but as I've gotten away from that church, I found, like I mentioned, a lot of peace in knowing that there's a higher power, and the idea that a higher power is guiding me and taking care of me and loving me is like a very comforting feeling for
Hmm.
me. Um, and I like to think of like intuition or ideas as coming from God or source. And we're kind of just like the vessel that expresses that.
Hmm.
And our job is kind of to like be a clear vessel through like being clear-minded and sober and not um, being on our phones all the time and like allowing messages and intuition and truths to flow through us and express it to other people and to ourselves.
Hmm. Okay, so for you, it's still there's a source, whether that's God or somebody, something out there, kind of communicating.
Yeah. Yeah, like I think it's hard for me to be like, oh, a, it's Jesus Christ is the God, or like Christianity, or because there's so many religions in the world. Like I think there are a lot is similar, but I haven't yet like identified with one solely. But I
Mhm.
do. I think I have like a general framework of like there's a God and God created the universe, thus created us, and there's God inside of us.
Okay. So this first part of the compass, the GLPS system that I've been kind of working on, the first part is C, which is stands for clues and coordinating points, which is what we've been talking
Hmm.
about. And I guess I want people who may not have a faith or who are turned off by faith still as a gay person because of what's happened
Hmm.
to them, that they can still have this mindset of following clues and seeing them as perhaps signs to direct them. And I would say that again because during while I was an atheist and even agnostic, I still had this was able to be led by this whatever this is, and it's also not even have to be a spiritual thing. It could be
Hmm.
there's I think there's some science behind it. I don't know if you've heard of awareness science or even manifestation, which has some science now behind it. I remember reading this book about um, I think it's called Into the Magic Shop, and this neuroscientist about growing up and going to this magic shop when he was like 10 years old and grew up in a really rough divorced family and was feeling lost. And so went to this magic shop and found that the owner's mother was there working and she invited him kind of back into the back room of the magic shop over time and to teach him, he said, what real magic was like. And so, she just introduced him to mindfulness practices,
Mm.
which he
Hmm.
used as a way to, he said, manifest his way out of his difficult life and became a
Hmm.
neuroscientist and a multimillionaire. Ended up losing it all because his focus wasn't on some of the right things he said at the time, and then was able to refocus. Now he's a professor in Stanford, but he used this idea, and he's an atheist. So, and he's developed a science around manifesting, which is basically when you start noticing things, when you have intentions, put that out into the world, you just start noticing things that reinforce what you're wanting in life. So it's like
Hmm.
I was looking for a car and I'm not really a car person, but I started, my partner was like, you should consider Mazdas and a certain SUV Mazda. And so I hadn't really noticed those before, but then I started noticing all these Mazdas around it in colors that I really
Yeah.
wanted. And it's that kind of thing. There's an approach to looking at the world, which is what I'm trying to introduce here is the idea of following breadcrumbs, these intentions that we put out into the world, and then kind of look for those clues that come to us that might reinforce what we're
Hmm.
thinking. Um, and that has applied to me in different projects that I've done.
Yeah. Yeah, I think getting like clear on what you want out of life is maybe where I would start.
Mm,
And I think maybe what you're hinting at. Like for example, if like so for example, for me, I want to like be a therapist, travel, and be a part of a community. I think Dave, when we first started, I think my main goal was to find community.
mm,
And once I think once you set out the goal, that's kind of when the clues start to come in. Like
mm,
if you have an intention, like you were mentioning, I want to be a part of a friend group, and then someone reaches out to you, that can kind of connect the dots of, oh, this person's reaching out to me. I want to be a part of a friend group. Let me follow that breadcrumb.
mm,
And that's really kind of how I found my friend group. I was out on a date and we bumped into this like really like sociable person who was really friendly and we exchanged contact information and a couple weeks later he invited me to a dinner and it was a bunch of strangers that I didn't know. I barely knew the guy, but I it was kind of like that breadcrumb that I was like I want to be a part of a friend group. Here's the universe providing this kind of opportunity or clue and follow that breadcrumb. And 2 years later, I'm best friends with two of them who
mm,
are at the dinner,
mm,
and it's kind of the universe like providing what the end outcome or the goal that you want. And I think it's like setting that intention and then being brave enough when the opportunities provide themselves. And that didn't, yeah, I think that's what I would say about that is like having the end goal in mind is important and
Mm-hmm.
then f being able to follow those breadcrumbs after.
Yeah, and we'll get into in the later kind of phases of this process, this compass process, how to maybe discern those things. But for now, like, how do you decide between like if you got all these offers, and then maybe if you don't get anything, what do you do? But when you got, all these potential directions you could go in regarding, friends here, community, also you mentioned
Mm,
how you decided with your moving to Cincinnati versus Nashville, you just flipped a coin. But how do you discern like you have these ideas and then these things start to come at you? How do you make a decision about the right decision or the best decision for you?
mhm.
And it
That is
applies
a
to
great
dating
question, and
too.
this has been a challenge.
Yeah, I was thinking in
Yeah,
terms of dating as well, like you have or career, whatever it is.
yeah. It's really challenging. I think having core principles is really a great strategy. Like, for example, I quit my job last October. It was a corporate job, and it was just not aligned with my values of wanting to like help people on like a I was gonna say spiritual and like mental and physical level. And I quit that job to start kind of like my coaching business and start my gay men's yoga group. And a couple months into it, another recruiting firm, which is the industry that I left, reached out to me, and I took that job like because I was low on money and like it like made sense logically, but as soon as I took the offer, like it felt so wrong in
Mm,
my like body. So I
mm,
think like feeling out decisions is something that I'm trying to lean into. Like how does this decision feel inside of me?
mm,
And kind of also aligning that with like my core values. And that's a very lofty goal of making all your decisions on your core values because it can be challenging, I think.
mhm,
Um, and that's something I want to strive for, and it's definitely something that I don't do all of the time. But I think those are two of the ways I make decisions or would like to is how it feels in my body. Does this make me feel energized? Does this make me feel excited? Or does this make me feel like restricted and contracting and maybe taking like the easy way out in a sense. And then um, does this align with who I want to be in the long
mhm.
term is another way to kind of make decisions.
Okay. Yeah, I thought of something that I was going to ask you related to that, but I lost it. Yeah, so I'll go back to another question. So you said
Okay.
in this last week you've had like four conversations that independent of each other, and can you share a little bit more about what that was like and how those conversations came about?
Yeah. So they are all with gay men that are my friends. And what so they came about just wanting to kind of reconnect with a couple friends that I haven't seen in a bit. And one was a like birthday date, so I took a friend out to breakfast, and then we went on a hike. And he had just been going through a breakup, and I was going through a really tough time the past couple weeks. And what I learned from it is that we're all going through similar things, but just through different events or experiences. And it's so important to share those experiences with our friends because it lets people know that they're not alone in the struggles. And I think it also kind of just like reinforced that like I want to be there for people when they're struggling and um like kind of in line with like the work that I want to be doing as a coach and a therapist. Because the past couple months I've been like haven't been really directly pursuing that. I'm like doing my coaching, fitness coaching, and there's some of that in there. Um, but it was like a nice reminder, I think. And then, um, yeah, I guess what I learned from those four conversations is it's just even all four of us are out and we've all been on this journey, there's still so much for us to continue to learn and a lot to go through. And I rem listened to you talking about how you kind of came out two or three times. I
Mm,
think it's a continual journey of like self-acceptance and like even if you come out to some friends, you might be like in the closet and others, or you might not act your full self. And then like dating is another whole life in itself, I
mm,
think, especially for gay men. Like that's where a lot of our like I think shame and self-acceptance starts to creep in is in
mm,
relationships. That's what I've noticed in myself and
mm,
maybe my friends as well. So I think it's just really important for us to talk about it with our friends and be vulnerable and share what our kind of our experiences are.
mm, mm. Yeah, it does. It's kind of dating is like that's where the you're confronting yourself in many ways when you in a real way when you start dating somebody. It's like, oh yeah, this is I am gay, and this is what it looks like. You know, if you haven't really accepted yourself throughout your life.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Yeah,
so the
I, yeah, go ahead. Sorry, Dave.
no, that's fine. Yeah. So the other conversation, you had three or four similar, like around the same themes.
Yeah. Yeah, they're all kind of about dating
Mm,
and like self-acceptance and like sexual um like just how like sometimes I think so there's dating and then there's sex inside of dating and the sex can also be a I think like another layer of self-acceptance
mm,
and kind of working through that and I think sometimes like an internalized homophobia or a lack of self-acceptance really shows up in sex and I think that's something that maybe gay men don't talk all that often about
mm,
but I think it's like a real
mm,
topic that um is important to share and let people know that they're not alone in that
mm,
and that we can work through it together and be there for each other.
mm. Great. Yeah. That's good. I'm so glad you have that community.
Mm. Yeah, I'm really grateful and blessed, so
Yeah.
thank you.
Um, I thought about what I was going to ask earlier. So the kind of the idea of it's sort of like you're when you made the decision to take that job and you almost instantly regretted it. Your body kind of told you like this isn't right for me.
Hmm.
It's a lot of what I'm trying to do on this and with this YouTube channel is to the idea is I call it the Good Life Lab because it's an experimentation. We're experimenting with our mental health and well-being and just getting out there and trying different things and seeing what works and seeing what doesn't. It's not at all about being having the perfect, life at all. It's just prototyping your life, and that's the same idea with this Compass, these projects, is just to start to move in a direction and just that movement can help boost your mental health and well-being that you're taking action on something you really want to try, even if it's not the perfect outcome. You know, it's not going to, what's, if nothing else, you know that that's not the direction you should go in, like you kind of had in your, with your decision. So, um, yeah, so that's good.
Hmm. Yeah.
So kind of the next part of this is this just having discussion around breadcrumbs and how clues can come to us. Any other thoughts around how things have come to you? Any other examples or just thoughts that you might have about how you've made decisions and discerned stuff in life?
Um,
How with I mean it's another we kind of talked about it with dating. How is that? How do you make those kinds of decisions?
for dating, it's been the most challenging for me to make those decisions. I think so it's challenging for me because I'll say to my friends and therapists and you, Dave, like what I want is a relationship. And then what I've noticed is that my actions actually go against that.
Mm,
Um, so I will go on a couple dates and then I will feel myself pulling away from this person. And I don't know if it's really confusing in my brain because I don't know. This is where I'm kind of gaining trust of myself. Is
mm,
this from like shame or internalized homophobia or whatever it may be. I don't want to overuse the phrase internalized homophobia. I think can be not super helpful. Like lack of it, self-acceptance. But or is this because the person and I are not a match?
Mm.
And it can
Mhm.
get confusing. And I think that's where I'm still pretty new, I think, in like the dating world. So I'm, like you said, experimenting, just trying to like figure that out.
Yeah.
I haven't actually really come up with a lot of great strategies. I maybe would be curious to kind of hear your experience and what you've learned in the dating space.
Mhm. Well, it made me think too. I maybe have shared this with you, but it's been a while. But I'm thinking not even dating, just being friends with men, more so men than women. But that ambivalent feeling I've had with whether they're straight or gay men and becoming closer with them. I remember, and this is it's really interesting to think back. Now this is going in my 20s and 30s when I was trying to just have healthy relationships with other men and feeling like this draw to them. I mean, I was definitely attracted to men, and then I almost like that was my compass point was whether or not to get to pursue a relationship with them, a friendship or a relationship was whether or not I was attracted to them. So
Mhm.
that was my draw. And then I found that interestingly, I become friends with them, and then at some point, almost all the time, as I got closer to them, there would be this ambivalent like love hate stage
Mm,
that I had
mhm,
to I guess just discern if I wanted to pursue or not. But over time, I felt like this happens often enough. I need to push through this. I can't just avoid it and say, "Oh, this isn't the right person for me." Not dating, just friendship wise, because I can't. I came up against that all the time. I felt like this strong love hate, almost like hate after a while. Like I just didn't um, feel right about it. So it's like this isn't right. There's something else going on inside me. I need to push through this and push through the ambivalence, the anger, the hate, whatever it
mhm,
was, and just have become a loyal friend and that
mhm,
doesn't get sidetracked or sidelined by these strong emotions of ambivalence. So I remember that, and that really helped me over time just have healthier friendships. Like I'm not gonna yeah, so that's one thing I think of that's changed for me. Even in, a partnership, there's times like that when you deal with conflict, it's like I need to push through this. It's like this is not a comfortable
mhm.
feeling. I don't feel great about this, but I need to kind of push through it.
That's beautiful, Dave. Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that. I've had that same exact feeling of like this this kind of like, oh, I want to create distance with this person. And I
Mm,
think it's that it's just like a natural thing in relationships where we have to kind of choose that person over the feelings that we're
mm,
having. Because the feelings may not be extremely warranted. And I've seen this pattern kind of come up with the last two people I've dated, the last two guys I've dated, is just this like feeling of like, oh, I need to get away. Like
mm,
there was nothing really they did really
mm,
also, which is
mhm,
just like interesting to realize. And then, like you said, maybe pushing through that is kind of where the magic happens.
mhm. Yeah, and again, discerning when is that um what's the right time or dynamic to push through and when do need to not, you know,
Right.
and I mean, how are you making that decision difference?
Um, For me, I mean, like to be brutally honest, I think it's if I can not live without this person? Like,
Mm,
is this person someone that is in a romantic level? Like when my dream is like if I really enjoy being around with someone and like they're a good person, like I would love to continue being friends. And I am lucky enough that the last person I dated we're still good friends and like we've had that conversation about being friends and we're not just like completely out of each other's lives. But I think the idea of like, do I want to spend um like the rest of my life with this person? I think is kind of the question that I have. And I know that might be an unfair question at this stage of my life, but that's kind of where my head's at of
mm,
like I if that's not the case, then um I don't know. Yeah. But I think there's a certain point when I just sometimes feel ready for things, and I realize like it takes time, like, and not to feel immense pressure, but then balance that out with like it's gonna be uncomfortable the first time you really commit to somebody,
Mm,
and you're gonna have to push through it.
mhm. That seems like a good benchmark, good thing to ask yourself. One of a few maybe, but what's is this somebody I want to spend my the rest of my life with? It's a good question.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good question. One of my friends told me a pretty good quote. It's like, I don't know, some people, I enjoy being by myself, and I think some people also do, but if you don't, maybe don't listen to this. But it's if the person feel like when you're hanging out with them and it feels better than you being alone, then
Mm,
that person is be the right person for you.
mhm, mm. Good. Yeah, that's good. So, yeah, I don't have a lot of other questions, but do you have any questions or any other kind of reflections as you've been thinking about this idea of breadcrumbs the last week?
Well, I wanted to just touch on something that you said about how this is kind of like a exploration. And I think that that's such an important thing to like double down on, that like these are all strategies, and that it's everything's a work in progress, and not to put pressure on ourselves to like figure it out quickly.
Mm,
I think that's something that I've done and
mm,
continue to do is, oh, I've done this. It should result in this.
mm,
And to give ourselves grace, and life is challenging sometimes, and it might be hard a little bit, and that's okay. Um, we're all doing our best, and not to get discouraged when things don't change quickly. I think when we zoom out, like over the course of a couple years, you'll be really proud of the distance that you've come. Um, and to use these frameworks in a way that like you're ex thinking of it as an experiment, and what's working, what's not working, and not to put all this pressure on ourselves to have it figured out and to like
mm,
live this perfect life. Because I
mhm,
think as gay men, we have like a very high standard for ourselves, and we want to be perfect and have everyone like us, and that's totally understandable. But things take time would be
mm,
like my reflection to your idea of the compass, because I love the idea. I think it's so important to have like a framework and a direction. Um, so yeah, I love the work you're doing
mm.
overall.
Thanks. And that makes you think of like when I was in college, traveled to with my girlfriend at the time to Europe,
Uh-huh.
and her mom said something like, "It's not about the destination; it's about the journey," which you hear a lot. I mean, I've heard a lot since then, but I think in my college age brain, I didn't really think about it that much. Like, what does that mean? Like, you really look forward to getting to where you want to get, but not really enjoying the process of getting there. And so
Mm.
I've heard that over and over again. I'm still reminding myself that that's important to just enjoy the process of exploration and learning and growing. And that's probably more important than trying to get to a specific
Yeah.
place in life. Because we live in that process much more than we live in the destination, you know, where it takes us years to get to a certain point. So we're spending years getting someplace. So why not try to enjoy that? Yeah.
Yep. We're always in the present moment.
Yeah. Yeah. So this whole series is related to meaning and purpose in life, and then also happiness and kind of mental health and well-being. But the core part of it is helping people find greater meaning and purpose and direction. So,
Hmm.
what do you think meaning and purpose looks like for you?
Family is definitely always pops into my head. I'm so grateful for my family, and I want to be a good brother, a good son, and that's always been meaning and purposeful. A great, good grandson, good nephew. Like I
Mm,
can think of all the people that I love, and being a good friend is really important to me. Um, and I sharing truth is also very important and meaningful to me, like sharing my experience, and because I think like I mentioned earlier, I think we all go through very similar experiences, and to hear someone express their truth and what they're going through lets people know that they're not alone and that it's normal to go through these things. Um,
So sharing truth is being
so
authentic. Is that what you mean by that?
yeah,
Being,
yes, yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah, like sharing my like truth of my experience and reality. Um, and then like right now I'm in this phase of kind of like continuing. I think a lot of my purpose is um like loving myself. And I think
Mm.
with the idea that like if I'm able to love myself, I'm able to love others as well. Um, not that I I definitely love others now, but I think there's just a lot of room for growth and like being more of um like helpful person. I think that's another just like the purpose of my life is to be helpful. Um, whatever like and that can be I can be helpful in so many different ways. It doesn't have to be like I need to be this profession or whatnot. So yeah, to sum it up, I would say family, friends, being helpful and being truthful are just kind of like
Okay.
where my
So
purpose and
beyond with
is.
like clues to your, I mean, you call them this, but core values. This is what's most important to you.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think I've shared this story quite a bit with you, but I've shared it with on my channel at the Good Life Lab quite a bit. This Project 46 that I've done is an example of following breadcrumbs. So I'm just sharing this with you, but also people listening as an example how this works. So went through this process of generating a life list, and I was during it when I was 45, really depressed. I started to come out, but I was dating and it wasn't working out well, and I was in between jobs, and um, I came across this article in a magazine, The Economist, and if I told you this, remember the story? Have I told you the story, Seamus?
I think I listened to you
Oh,
do your speech on it,
okay.
which was
That's
awesome.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I came across this article. It said life is, gets better, happier. We get happier as we get older, and the turning point's
Mm,
46. And so I took that as a sign that okay, life can get better for me again. And then I just kind of crafted this year-long project to help me focus on my three intentions for that year that kind of evolved over a few months, which really life got a lot worse over that year. And then 2 years, things just transformed and got really, really good over the next 10 years. But it's this, I think I felt most alive even in the kind of darkness when I started to have this mindset shift around following breadcrumbs, which to me meant at the time listening to messages in everyday events and just having an openness and awareness. People I met in the grocery store, um, things I read, conversations I was having, and just that mindset of being open to messages and everyday events that helped me come alive and get me out of this, a little bit of that, out of that depression I was in. So that's why I think this is such an important kind of part of this process is to have that foundational mindset about listening for
mm,
clues and paying attention to life and what life has for us and the good things that life has for us. So that's why I'm so committed to trying to share this with other people and take people through this process. And so the first two parts, the compass of clues and coordinating points, and then the O origin story and heroic journey, which we'll get to next, are really just foundation for then identifying passions and strengths and goals, and then where you go from there. So the next week will be more foundational again, looking back, and then also framing our future. And yeah, so that's what's coming up.
awesome. I'm looking forward to it.
Okay. All right, final comments.
Final comments, just kind of like going off of what you were saying, I think being open to the good that life wants to provide us is really important. Like if we think that life is going to provide us negative experiences, I think we'll
Mm,
find them. And but I think if we're open to the good and that the possibility that things can turn around, I think life has a an interesting way of proving us right.
mm, mhm. Part of this too, mentioned the hero's journey. I don't know if I mentioned it, but that's next time is framing our life in that way. Um, and not that we don't go through the darkness as we focus on kind of the good in life. There's obviously that those dark spots and how
Mm.
you navigate some of those. We'll kind of get into that as well next time.
I think it's one of the biggest tools that we can use and that I've used in my life. I think when we're in the struggle of something, our story is a lot different. It's kind of like, why is this happening to me? Or this is so hard. Like especially for like struggling with my sexuality, I think there was a lot of like why and like I don't want this to happen. And then once you like seek help and want to kind of accept the reality of what's going on, and you look back on those times where it was challenging and it was hard and you fought through it, I think the story changes so much to like for my in my case like a lot of gratitude for the struggle and the challenge, and realizing that like that part of my life was really foundational in who I am today. But the story that I was telling about that earlier was this one of like frustration and anger and sadness and loneliness. And then the story now that I have like some ability to look back on it and have a different perspective of it is like night and day difference.